My name is Madeline Noonan, and I'm a proud resident of the village of Hyannis. A lot. Hard to quantify in terms of numbers, but I think some probably of the most meaningful memories that I've had personally. I met my husband in the town of Barnstable at the Hyannis Youth and Community Centre. He proposed to me at the fireworks on the 4th of July at Veterans Beach. We got married at the beach club down by Long Beach in Centreville. So I have all of these places where I can go, and there's such meaning to me personally. And I think, you know, professionally, I would probably say the All-America City experience, you know, to be a part of such a sense of pride, to feel that those of us that were part of that were fortunate enough to be a part of that process, you know, and me being lucky enough to be one of the people that was involved from the very beginning, you know, in writing and putting together the application that was submitted, and then finding out that we were finalists and planning the trip to Anaheim, where we had to compete to be one of the 10 communities that's selected across the nation every year. I think just the feeling of the sense of pride and dedication and really hard work that went into making that. Had we not even been selected, I think that sense would have resonated. It did with everybody. It really brought everybody together, and that feeling of connectedness between town employees that may not have worked that closely together, but because the process was involving people from different departments, I mean, we had to pick 3 areas, specific areas that the town had worked on to improve participation with the community, and you know, the part where I was most involved in was the affordable housing initiatives that we had worked on to improve you know, people been able to live and have affordable housing within our community so that they could live, you know, healthy and happy lives here. But also the Main Street Revitalization Project was a big part of it in Hyannis, and also the Hyannis Youth and Community Centre and the Recreation Department and all of the programs that the town was working to help benefit our younger residents. But I just think it brought everybody together with a sense of collective purpose and pride. And honestly, I mean, I know I'm not alone in this. There were 47 people that went to Anaheim. You know, a lot of time and effort and hard work went into it, but I think the payoff was immeasurable in terms of, I think we all still feel like we were part of something very unique and special, and that we got to represent the entire town. I mean, obviously not every resident of the town of Barnstable was able to go out there, but the fact that we were selected as the team to go, I will always consider that a really, you know, meaningful event for me. And really, I felt like that year, the year that we had applied, was the year that I first became eligible to become an American citizen. And I felt like, you know, I mean, although I grew up in Ireland and, you know, I didn't move here until I was in my mid-20s, I had never felt such a sense of community, you know, as being fortunate to work for the town of Barnstable for a number of years. But that experience just really cemented my feeling that, you know what, I'm an American, you know, I'm a Barnstable resident. This country and this town have been so good to me that, you know, I feel indebted, you know, for the experiences and opportunities that I've had. It was such a gift to be part of an experience where not only did we get to represent our special part of the country, you know, our unique Cape Cod and town of Barnstable, but to be able to connect with people from such diverse areas. I mean, we had cities and towns, you know, and to be able to get to listen to their ideas. Everybody had to do a presentation, and a lot of creativity and thought and effort went into everyone's presentations. But I think we all took away ideas of things that maybe we could do, areas that we could focus on. And I mean, I think, you know, towns, cities, communities across the country deal with a lot of the same themes and issues. And maybe how we respond to them is a little different, and I think it's always good to keep our eyes open and our ears open, because some strategies and solutions that might work in another community could potentially work for us, even if you're talking about a much bigger city. But I think having the willingness, you know, to try new things and explore new solutions, and a great way to do that obviously is to interact with, you know, people from other communities. Well, I will say that our town manager at the time, John Clem, who was the one who came up with the idea and said, "Let's do this. We're doing enough good things in our community that I really think we have a shot at winning this." And he was so committed from the get-go. And even though it was very close to the deadline when he assembled a team to work on this application, that showed the commitment that people were willing. I mean, I remember it was like in March. It was the St. Patrick's Day weekend, and so I could have been out celebrating my Irish heritage, but instead we were all kind of working, at home on our little respective pieces, and we felt like this was such a great opportunity that everybody was so invested and bought into it right away. And I think that was John's leadership. I mean, John, knew that we were doing the right things and knew that we had a really unique and interesting story to tell. And so the fact that he brought everybody together, and then when we found out we were finalists, he brought, us over to the high school. We're under, the tutelage of Ed O'Toole and John Sullivan, who were, led the high school drama club. They got to bring in the creativity in putting our presentation together. And we had a cast of characters that really, it was a fun experience, but everybody put so much sweat into it, and I think the ultimate feeling was, when we were selected, when we were called out, and we could tell, when they were sort of naming, this community and this community did that it was looking like, this is Barnstable, and it was an amazing. It's hard to put into words the feeling. I remember there was so much pressure leading up to it, to go all the way out there, and all the work and hours that had been put into it, and and then to have that feeling of just that release, and that feeling of just, I think it was just complete positivity and exuberance and joy. Sure. And I think we still, all of us that were there can still feel that, and still, I mean, it's almost 10 years ago now, but it doesn't even feel like that long ago. And I think the town, at this point, could even, try again, because so many new ideas and new programs and initiatives have started since that time. So I was fortunate to grow up in Ireland. Ireland is a country that puts a lot of value into education. We have a great education system. Growing up, I was really into nature and being outdoors, and my grandparents lived on farms, so I spent a lot of time in the countryside, and I loved science. That was kind of the area where I thought I was going to go into, like earth sciences and biology and zoology in particular, and I loved geology. I used to spend a lot of time watching wildlife shows and science shows on TV. So I did study science in university, but then before I completed my degree, I had an opportunity to work for the city of Dublin. And when I thought about it, it was at the time I felt like it was an opportunity that I just couldn't turn down, because part of me wanted to be, have a career and start to work. I'd always been interested in public service as well, taking civics classes in high school. I'd kind of gained an interest in that field, and so I actually had started with the city. I worked in the equivalent of the Registry of Motor Vehicles over here. Issuing driving licenses and motor tax registrations. And then I was moved to the housing department, which was a great opportunity because I got to be a part of a wonderful affordable housing initiative. Ireland and Dublin, like many areas across the United States, has an issue with suitable, adequate, affordable housing for people. So a lot of younger people in the city were having to kind of move to smaller towns and then had to commute into work and whatnot. And this was a program that it was called the Shared Ownership Program. It was a way by which people could get into the housing market without taking on the responsibility for a 100% mortgage. So in essence, the town or the city, this was a program that was offered throughout Ireland, the local authority would take a mortgage for 50% of the home, and the other 50% the mortgage was for up to 50. It could either be as low as 25%, depending on the person's income. And what was interesting about it, being called shared ownership, was the deed basically, had the individual's name as well as the local authority, and the mortgage was paid for the individual on their portion, and then they rented the other part from the city or the town. And that was just a way to get them, the rents were kept low on that percentage. And so it was a way that people could have that home ownership. Home ownership in Ireland has always been very high, in the 90-95%. A lot of European countries they have high rental rates. And so it's always been a very strong source of pride for people to be able to own their home. And the intent was that within 25 years that the individual would buy out. Sometimes it could happen within a couple of years if their situation changed. Other times they might need to have the full 25 25 years in order to do that. But it was a wonderful program because it gave people that sense of, owning a home, feeling like you're working towards something. It was a very rewarding opportunity. And so, my studies were put on hold, and then, as life happens, things had changed for me that I got to move to the United States and move to Barnstable. Barnstable came about because when I was in college in Ireland, and it's still a popular program, the J1 visa was an opportunity by which Irish students could have an American experience, to come over and spend a summer in the United States and learn about the culture in America and contribute to the American economy, particularly with tourist areas. I mean, that's always, as we know in Cape Cod very well, with the tourist-driven economy, the need for those seasonal positions to be filled. And so American employers liked Irish students because we don't go back to college typically until later than American students, so we could work the whole season. And so there were always abundant jobs available for us to come over. And so a number of my friends from college, it was kind of like, it was almost like a rite of passage, I'll say, to be able to have this summer. When you live in Ireland, where the summers are a little dreary and it rains quite a bit, to be able to go and spend a summer in America, it kind of felt like a coming of age thing to do. So I was lucky. Myself and 10 of my friends arrived over here, and the reason we specifically came to Cape Cod was because one of our friend's sisters had been here the summer before and raved about the experience. She got to have great fun and also made some money. At the time, there weren't a whole lot of jobs, available for students in Ireland, and the outlook wasn't, the prospects weren't great to save some money there. So we felt this is a win-win. We get to experience American life, we get to make some money, and I can remember arriving here, and I have to tell you, I was like 20 years old. I had never been on a plane before, so it was a little culture shock because we grow up, in Ireland, watching a lot of American TV, and I remember, like Baywatch and all those shows that were big at the time. That's just part of, we think we know America by watching TV, but I think arriving over here, and especially to Cape Cod, it was just an amazing experience in all good ways. My first job was actually, you wouldn't believe it, I worked at Burger King on North Street, and I was just there for lunch. A small world. It was, I worked there for about maybe 3 or 4 weeks. It didn't work out because I had to work really early in the morning. I think, our shift started at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And, we'd be up late at night, as you do when you're young and having fun and enjoying the summer. And another opportunity came along. I will say it was fun working there. It was a good time, getting to meet lots of people. But I had an opportunity to work at Cellar Leather on Main Street. And their slogan, their motto at the time was, "Where love is a leather rose." So I'd never seen these, leather roses. But I worked for Jeff Taylor, and one of my friends worked there as well. So it actually worked out great because we could kind of flex our schedules, and it was so much fun because people would come in, and they'd always be very interested and curious about meeting Irish students, and what brought you over here, and there was a real social aspect to it, but it was a great. It was a great experience, and I knew living in this town that summer, even though we lived in overcrowded housing, and as these things go, we just had the best time ever, and I felt like, at that point in time, Cape Cod almost kind of felt like a second home to me because it was the time where I had really spent the most time besides where I grew up. And I felt like, this is a place. Now, mind you, I kind of think I thought then that this is what it's like year round here. I didn't really realize that, yes, the winters are long and cold and all the snow that we get. But I just knew it was a place that I didn't want to leave and never come back, I did. I went home. I went back to Ireland for a number of years. I first came over here in 1993. And I came back. I moved over here permanently in 2000. And I actually lived on Nantucket for a couple of years, which was very interesting. I think I can remember all my friends, because I was still working for the city of Dublin at that point, and everybody's thinking, oh, she's going off to live the American dream. And I can remember sending a postcard back, saying like, this is where I live now, because it wasn't what people would associate with all the things we think of when we think of America. Nantucket is just so different. Obviously it's, the protection, of keeping it with that historic character that it has, and the conservation efforts that have gone in there. Because I can remember saying, like if I want Chinese food, I have to fly it over on the plane. There's no Burger Kings or McDonald's or any of those kind of things that we associate with, the United States. And it was, I have to say, I loved Nantucket. My older son was born there. It's a place that has special meaning to me. I think living there year round is very different than living there, when you go over there for maybe a summer day trip or you spend some time there on vacation in the summer. It's a whole different world to live there year round. But again, it's a place that was special because it was my first home when I moved here permanently. And then I moved to Barnstable in 2001, and I was really fortunate because I got to work. My first job here was working for the town of Barnstable. I mean, I had done a little temp job for a while my son was, an infant. And I knew, having worked in public service in Ireland, I knew it was something that I wanted to continue to build my career in. It was very important to me. And I remember finding an application in the paper they were posting for, it was an administrative position in the town manager's office. And when I applied for it, I interviewed with our former assistant town manager, Joellen Daly, and our former town clerk, Linda Hutchinrider. And it was interesting because they called me afterwards and said, well, there's another position we think that you might be better suited to. And I was really lucky to be given a position to work in the town manager's office. I was invited to come back, and I met with John Klim, who was our town manager at that time, and Linda Wielden and Shirley Oakley, who worked in the office and still do. And they offered me the position, and I just felt like it was such a wonderful experience for me to not just work for the town, but to work in the town manager's office where, personally and professionally, it was a great opportunity to grow and really to learn, maybe with a deeper understanding of, working in the city of Dublin. It was a huge organization, so it was very hard to understand your place, because there were a couple of thousand employees. But to work with the town of Barnstable, that's still a relatively big organization, especially for Cape Cod, but you feel much closer to the different departments, and to see how they interconnect and how different departments work together, I think it gave me a real, deeper respect and an awareness of why town government and why, municipal life is so important. Well, I was given an opportunity to work in the growth management department when it was created. And I, looking back at my housing experience in Ireland, I ran an affordable housing program in the growth management department. It was called the Accessory Affordable Apartment Program, which was a program that the town of Barnstable was really one of the first communities to offer this. It's a very innovative program because it uses existing properties, people that might have had illegal apartments, or people that might have wanted to create an apartment if they had extra space, maybe space above a garage or a detached building on their property that had the potential to become a studio apartment or maybe a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, and the town was able to relax the zoning requirements to allow the homeowner to rent out the property, but of course the catch was that it had to be offered to somebody who needed affordable housing, so there was a cap to how much they could charge. And this was really, the town saw this as a great solution to look at the existing housing infrastructure that we had in the town and to utilize some of that to benefit people needing affordable housing, whether they were individuals or couples or families, and also to provide some income to the homeowner. And again, it was like a win-win situation. I had a great time working with that program, working with the homeowners, whether they had an illegal unit that they maybe had been renting illegally, that they had the opportunity, and there was federal funding available through the Community Development Block Grant to assist the homeowners in bringing the buildings up to code, because that was obviously a main concern, was that they may have been rented out illegally and they were not really safe. And we had situations where people had apartments in their basements, and clearly there were egress issues there. And so we worked, I worked very closely with the building department, that we would go out and inspect the property and bring it up to code, go through the process, work with the Zoning Board of Appeals to get the comprehensive permit that allowed the deed restriction and whatnot to be put on the property so it could be rented, all the way through to the homeowner selecting the tenants. And it was just really nice to work in a program from beginning to end, to see, whether it was a homeowner that felt like, we had a lot of seniors. I will say there were a lot of elderly people that were maybe having issues keeping up with paying the property taxes, whatnot, even if their mortgage was paid off, but wanted to stay in their home, may not necessarily have had the means to do that, that renting it out to somebody who needed housing brought in some additional income from them to kind of alleviate some of the financial economic burden on them. And also this program really helped to increase the percentage of the town of Barnstable's affordable housing stock. So I had a great experience working with that program while I was there, and I got to work in other projects with growth management. I mean, it was a great experience at that time because the department was so new, and working with Ruth Weil, who was our director at the time, and now our town attorney, she was just so open and willing to look at, we looked at a lot of different grant applications I helped on. I got to do a variety of projects there. It was a great experience, and I think again it helped prepare me to take on a more significant management role within the town. And when the opportunity to move to the senior centre, when that position was posted, I was working towards my master's degree in public administration through Suffolk University, and I just felt, professionally, personally, where I was in my life, it was really a good time to take on some additional responsibility. My son was a little older, and I just felt like the timing was great, because one of the things that I most enjoy about being in public service is working with people, the opportunity to connect people to services and to make a difference in their lives. And I couldn't think of a better opportunity within the town of Barnstable network, that would allow me to do that. So I was very fortunate to be hired by John Klim to move over there. And I mean, that was 2007, October 2007 is when I first went to the senior centre. And I will tell you, I think the best thing about it is, in terms of time, it does not feel like it's been that long. It's still, I mean, I kind of joke around, all the time that things never get old at the senior centre. And I mean that in the best possible way, because I feel, and anyone, you can ask any senior centre director, and they'll tell you the same thing. No 2 days are ever the same. I feel like every day is a privilege, it's an honor, it's a highlight, because I learn, from the staff, from the participants who come there, and the sharing of ideas. I think the nature of the work that we do, that it really is so meaningful and it does have such a positive impact, is immensely gratifying and rewarding. And it's although there are many challenges facing aging services because of the demographics that we're facing, I find that there's just so much opportunity. I mean, the opportunities are endless. Absolutely. I mean, I was blessed because when I moved over there, it was right at the time when we were beginning construction to complete the lower level, what we call our garden level at the senior centre. And what was interesting to me, you walk into the building, and the building with our main floor is bigger than most senior centres. And so, to come in at a time when we were continuing our expansion, to me, it really spoke to the forward-thinking and progressive nature of the town leaders at the time when the senior centre was first constructed, to replace the building on South Street. I think there was a huge grassroots effort from the senior population in the town and the Council on Aging Board and the Friends of the Barnstable Council on Aging, who had really, formalised and become a 501c3 nonprofit so that they could assist with the fundraising. It really was a great public-private partnership, and the fact that it came to fruition, and it took a long time, to actually get the senior centre constructed. But to me, the speed with which the building was completed, the doors to the senior centre opened in June 1999. And in June 2008, we opened the garden level. So in less than a decade, the fact that we were not only able to construct the senior centre, but complete it, because, when I talk about the forward-thinking nature, what I'm so impressed with was that the town was looking ahead at that time and seeing where the demographic projections were, that, this space is suitable and appropriate now, but with the population aging, we are going to need more space. So they had essentially roughed out the lower level at the time when they first constructed the facility, with the goal of, having to raise more money through the Friends. They had conducted a second fundraising capital campaign and raised the money to complete it with the town's financial assistance. And that was an exciting time to come on board, to see that happen, and to be able to have all of this additional programming space was really exciting. And I will say I feel like time was really on our side. I think it was a stroke of luck, because it was not long after that the economy tanked, and had we waited any longer, I think we would have been waiting a long time to complete that. I do recall at that time, once we had completed the garden level, the next phase in our growth and development was to expand the parking lot, because we needed more parking to accommodate the greater usage of the building. And unfortunately, again, for financial economic reasons, we had to put that on hold. But just this year, we have completed our parking lot expansion, and we've basically gained an additional 50% of parking space, which I think is pretty impressive to have completed all of that in less than 20 years. I mean, I look at now where the senior centre is going, and 3 years from now we'll be celebrating our 20th anniversary, and I think we've already exceeded so many expectations that we had at that time. Oh my goodness, I can't do any of this alone. I mean, first of all, I'll say that we have an amazing staff, an extremely dedicated staff and volunteer corps. Again, the opportunity to work with so many volunteers has been an incredible learning opportunity for all of us who work there. This is, again, a wonderful thing about Barnstable. The opportunities for civic engagement in this community are just so great. People who serve on boards and commissions throughout the town. We've been fortunate that a lot of people who've come on to volunteer at the senior centre have been graduates of the Inside Barnstable Town Government program. And a lot of them were people who maybe had retired to Barnstable or had lived here but just never had time to really understand the inner workings of town government. And by participating in that program and finding out all these opportunities, they're thinking, okay, I'd like to do this or I'd like to do that. And many of them came to the senior centre. I have quite a lot of my board members who came to the program through that. I will say that people just want to give back. They want to have that sense of purpose. So after they may have retired from their working life and feel that, life's not over when you're retired. There's still so much potential. And for people, when they get to that point in their lives and they think about how much they have to give back, how many skills they've developed over the years that, they can use for, for a higher purpose. And I think that feeling that, when that collective work that you do, it feels like you're part of something bigger than yourself. And I think people have a real need for that. It is clearly a part of successful and healthy aging, is to give back and have meaningful purpose in life. So whether it's somebody who wants to come in and teach a class, they want to come in and work at the front desk, they might want to drive our van for our transportation program to help some of our seniors get around, to appointments, medical appointments, or the grocery store. We have so many opportunities, and just a great variety within those opportunities. I feel that a lot of our volunteers that came to us may have retired to Barnstable and did not have a lot of social connections or didn't feel those roots in the community because they were new. And I couldn't think of a better way for them to kind of feel like they're part of something, because by coming to the senior centre and volunteering, they're getting to meet. We have 100 to 200 people a day coming through our doors typically, and that's a lot of people coming in and out, a lot of connections that are made, and it's been a real honour to get to see a lot of our volunteers. They feel like they're part of our family. They really are part of our family. So even though they're not paid employees, they are part of our team. We couldn't be successful in our operations without them. We're always looking for volunteers. And what I will say, it's interesting then, because we started, we opened our doors in 1999, and let me tell you, we have volunteers with us today that were there when the building opened. And for some of them, they may be getting to a point in their lives where it's no longer something that they can commit as many hours to, or it may feel like it's time for them to kind of let that go, because it is a commitment. And we've had volunteers in our front desk, that come in, they take a 4-hour shift, every week, and they're committed to that. But what we find, it's interesting with this kind of transition that we're seeing demographically, because now we're, looking at the baby boomers that are aging and retiring. And they are it's an interesting demographic because they need flexibility. They're looking for flexibility. So they may not necessarily want to commit to, well, I'll come in every Monday afternoon and cover the front desk, because they've got a lot of other things going on in their lives. So we are looking at sort of, trying to succession planning for our volunteers that have been with us for a long time. So if anybody wants to, contact us, you can just come in the door at the senior center, or, call us, email us, however you want to get in touch, and we will certainly set up. We do a monthly volunteer orientation. Our assistant director, Donna Burns, sets up a meeting just to kind of talk prospective volunteers through the process and any current opportunities that we have available to make sure that we're getting the right fit. It's really important when you're placing a volunteer that it's sort of a symbiotic relationship, that not only is it benefiting us, but it has to benefit and reward them in some way too. So we want to make sure that we work through all the training and appropriate assignment. I will say that when I'm not working, the most important thing to me is spending time with my family, with my kids. I have a 14-year-old and a 2-year-old son, so they kind of keep me on my toes. I love to swim, and I will tell you, my favorite place to swim is down on Long Beach, which, to me is probably the most special place in town for me, because, with my Irish skin, I'm not a beach lover during the day, but in the evening, to come there at the end of the day and just, you feel like you have it to yourself. And that is, to me, it's a sanctuary, it's a really, really special place. I love to do a lot of things. I love to cook, I love to read, love to go to the movies. I love to travel, and for me particularly, one of the things I love to do is to go back and visit my family in Ireland, and it's always really special when they get to come here, and I love to show them around Cape Cod, because again, I grew up in what I think is really the most beautiful country in the world. People go there to see all of the beautiful sights that we have in the countryside, but I feel like here in Cape Cod, in the town of Barnstable, it's God's country. I think the opportunities for civic engagement, like I said, for people who reside in this town to have input into how the government is run, how the town is run, I think is very important. I think the people in the town, the sense of pride and sense of community here, and I think, you look at things and how many things there are to do, the physical beauty and, the beaches and the access to all of this, beautiful environment. I love, with my family, that we can go, hang out on Main Street, walk down Main Street, and it's so eclectic, and also, the commitment to arts and culture, I think, is, it's such a benefit to people that live here, that you can access all of these wonderful things. And I think overall, I'd say the quality of life. It's a good quality of life to be able to live here. I think, given the demographics that we're looking at, and I will say the town has been, very supportive of the services that we provide, to seniors. I think making sure that we maintain a community that is healthy and livable for everyone across the lifespan. So, that we're providing great opportunities for our youngsters, which we're obviously doing, through the Recreation and Hyannis Youth and Community Centre, and also, meaningful opportunities and engagement for our older residents and intergenerational opportunities. I think the town, being aware, and we completed a study last year that we had done in partnership with the UMass Boston Gerontology Institute, that was a needs assessment. Specifically, we undertook that project really to get a sense of what the needs were of our aging population, because we currently have over 30% of our population is over 60, and that's projected to grow to 42% by 2030, which is pretty astounding when you think of that in terms of the numbers. So clearly there's a need to be proactive in planning for people who want to age in place. One of the things we found out from the study was that there's an overwhelming majority of people in Barnstable that want to stay in their homes, in their villages, in this town for as long as they possibly can. So providing programs, services, supports that allow people to do that so they can continue living independently and contribute to our community is important, but that's not to take away from the needs of, even though there are less families and less children in the town, their needs can't be diminished because of that. There still has to be, social, economic opportunities, for them to be able to, stay here and live here, because the future of our town depends on the people that live here, and, you can't have all older people and not be able to to have the younger generations live here. So I think, an ongoing commitment to providing affordable housing and, economic professional opportunities is very important. My name is Madeline Noonan, and I am a proud resident of the village of Hyannis in the town of Barnstable.